Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Alan Burgos from the hashtag Walk with Lunch channel, and welcome to our lecture. So, this part today, what we will be talking about is related to attacks, concepts, and techniques in relation to computing security. So, this lesson will cover the ways that cybersecurity professionals analyze what has happened after a cyber attack. It explains security software and hardware vulnerabilities and the different categories of security vulnerabilities. We will be talking about as well the different types of malicious software known as malware, and the symptoms of malware will be discussed as well. The different ways that attackers can infiltrate the system will be covered, as well as the DOS or the denial of service attacks. Most modern cyber attacks are considered to be blended attacks. When we say attacks, it's a combination of techniques, it's a combination of methodologies and frameworks on the part of the attackers. Blended attacks use multiple techniques to infiltrate and attack a system. When an attack cannot be prevented, and and it is the job of the cybersecurity professional to reduce the impact of the attack. That is why we are studying this one. All right. Okay, so this particular slide talks about about finding security vulnerabilities. Security vulnerabilities are any kind of software or hardware defect. We are talking about the imperfection of the software and hardware. So an attacker, after gaining knowledge of a vulnerability, that is the first step actually, malicious users attempt to exploit it. An exploit is the term used to describe a program written to take advantage of a known vulnerability. So if you know already the vulnerability, you will try to exploit it. So the act of using an exploit against a vulnerability is referred to as an attack. It means to say that the attacker takes an action. The goal of the attack is to gain access and, of course, to harm the system, not only the system, maybe the owner and the company itself, the data it hosts, or to a specific resource. Okay, as what I mentioned, there are two kinds of vulnerabilities here, but let me add one more. That is the process. The first one is the software vulnerabilities. Okay, software vulnerabilities are usually introduced by errors or bugs, okay, in the operating system or application code. Despite all the effort companies put into finding and patching software vulnerabilities, it is common for new vulnerabilities to surface. As what I mentioned during my past lectures, there is no perfect system nor an operating system. No? Microsoft, Apple, and other operating system producers release patches and updates almost every day, sometimes more than 2 times a day. Application updates are also common. When we say application, these are the productivity softwares or applications and other applications for that matter. Applications such as web browsers, mobile apps, and web servers are often updated by their companies or organizing responsible for them. So for instance, Zoom, right? Zoom is providing updates as well and patches to its consumers or customers. Uh, in 2015, a major vulnerability called Sinful Knock, no? Knock, 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 was discovered in Cisco iOS or the network operating system of Cisco. Cisco is a brand or a product or a company that is producing networking devices. This vulnerability allowed attackers to gain control of enterprise grade routers, no, such as their legacy, no, the old, the legacy Cisco 1841, 2811, and 3825 routers. These are the routers, okay, produced by Cisco. The attackers could then monitor all network communication and had the ability to infect other networking devices. So meaning to say the communication, no, on the network itself could be able, the attackers could be able to monitor them. The vulnerability was introduced into the system when an altered iOS version was installed in the routers. So when we say altered, no, the integrity of the communication is at stake. To avoid this, always verify the integrity of the downloaded iOS image. For instance, this is a Cisco Internet Networking Operating System, meaning to say you just need to download it from the Cisco website, okay, and limit the physical access of the equipment to authorized personnel only. So meaning to say maybe the network itself or the default password of the network or of the router should be changed. Okay, the goal of software updates is to stay current and avoid exploitation of vulnerabilities. While some companies have the penetration testing teams, no? When we say penetration or pen test teams, these are the people who will penetrate the system without informing the other users. But the top management are informed of this and they are part of the plan. Okay, so these teams no find and patch software vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. When they discovered the vulnerabilities, they they patch no they patch the vulnerabilities before others would be able to exploit it. Okay, third party security researchers also specializes in finding vulnerabilities in softwares. These are other companies no, that is not related to that particular company would do the pen test. Okay, one example of this is the Google's Project Zero. Okay, so after discovering a number of vulnerabilities in various software used by end users, Google formed a permanent team dedicated to finding software vulnerabilities. Okay, so you can go to their website or search on Google Security Research, something like that. The next one is hardware vulnerabilities. So this is a defect. Okay, these are often introduced by hardware design flaws. RAM memory, for example, okay, is essential capacitors installed very close to one another. But mind you, it was discovered that due to proximity, constant changes applied to one of these capacitors could influence neighbor capacitors. Based on that design flaw, an exploit called row hammer no, was created by an attacker. By repeatedly rewriting memory in the same address, the row hammer exploit allows data to be retrieved from nearby address memory cells, even if the cells are protected. Hardware vulnerabilities are specific to device models and are not generally exploited through random compromising attempts, while hardware exploits are more common in highly targeted attacks. Traditional malware or traditional malicious software protection and physical security are sufficient protection to the everyday user. All right, so let's move to the next slide. Categorizing security vulnerabilities. So most software security vulnerabilities fall into one of the following categories. Okay? Yeah. So these are the categories. No? But let's start with buffer overflow. So this buffer overflow or this vulnerability or this defect, all right, occurs when data is written beyond the limits of a buffer. Okay. So buffers are memory areas allocated to an application. So every application, there is a buffer. There is an allocation on the memory itself. So by changing data beyond the boundaries of a buffer, the application processes, right, or application access. The application accesses memory allocated to other processes. So meaning to say that particular process has been allocated, no? Or that particular space has been allocated to an application. Right. So if that would be the case, this can lead to a system crash, data compromise, or provide escalation of privileges. So the next one is non-validated input. Okay, programs often work with data input. Do you agree with me? Type there yes if you agree with me on the comment section, and type there also some of your comments. All right. So this data coming into the program could have malicious content designed to force the program to behave in an unintended way. Consider a program that receives an image for processing. A malicious user could craft an image file with invalid image dimensions. No? The malicious crafted dimensions could force the program to allocate buffers of incorrect and unexpected sizes. Okay, so very well. Let us drink a coffee first. Okay, type. Please do comment there on the comment section if you um um okay, if you want to add something on the lecture. Okay, please type there also what lecture do you want me to discuss as well. All right. So in the future, if we have some if we have subscribers who will request for a live lecture, I will do that as well. Okay. Now, let's proceed with the next item, which is the race conditions. This one. Excuse me. So the vulnerability is when the output of an event depends on ordered or limited outputs. Okay, a race condition becomes a source of vulnerability when the required order or time events do not occur in the correct order or proper timing. That's why operating systems are doing what are they doing is if the particular picture or image or other applications would not open in a timely manner, they would warn you. No, okay. The next one is weaknesses in security practices. Sometimes this is more of human, no, human error or human factor. For instance, systems and sensitive data can be protected through techniques such as authentication. Okay, you need to be authenticated if you are really the person that you want to say or tell, right? Authorization, every action that you should make should be authorized by the company, and and encryption also, so that others would not be able to see or yeah, to see or get that particular file. Developers should not attempt to create their own security algorithms, okay? So because it will likely introduce vulnerabilities, you should not take or practice your own standard, but also of other because of the standard of the company and the international standard. It is strongly advised. It is strongly suggest. No, I suggest that developers, no, or IT practitioners should use security libraries that have already created, tested, and verified. Okay. The next one is access control problems. Okay. The definition is there. Okay. Access controls is the process of controlling who does what and ranges from managing physical access to equipment to dictating who has access to a resource, such as a file, and what they can do with it, such as read or change the file. Many security vulnerabilities are created by the improper use of access controls. Nearly all access controls and security practices can be overcome if the attacker has physical access to largest equipment, not largest, but the target equipment. So for example, no matter what you set files permission to, the operating system cannot prevent someone from bypassing the operating system and reading the data directly off the disk. Okay, so to protect the machine and the data it contains, physical access must be restricted and encrypted techniques must be used to protect data from being stolen or corrupted. Okay. All right. So I will end the lecture from this one. Okay. So this will be the part one of the lecture. Um, Kung hindi ka pa nakapag-subscribe, if you didn't subscribe yet, please do subscribe to my channel so that every time I have a lecture on this hashtag Walk with Lan channel, you are updated, friends. No, please do share this to your friends, classmates, and colleagues as well. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.